Hello again, everyone. Hope you're doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. And what a pleasure it is to be joined by our old pal, Ben Askren. I got to say, in 2019, it seemed like we talked to Ben Askren every single week. This year, he's been a little elusive. He's been a little distant. So it's good to,
Elusive. You would
yeah.
ask me to come on.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. You're not really active anymore. There's nothing to really talk to you about these days.
Only active on Twitter.
That's right. Holy smokes. What a hot take you had recently.
Which
DMX,
one?
underrated rapper. Come on.
What do you think?
I
You
don't
don't
know if
like
he was.
him?
No, he was great. I don't think he was underrated.
Oh,
I think he was rated pretty high.
okay. I just don't feel like, I don't feel like he's ever in that, people put up their top 5 list. I feel like they never ever include him. And I think, maybe he doesn't make everybody's list, but he should make some lists, of course.
Yeah, no, you have been. I mean, if I'm being honest, you're entering prolific social media master territory at this point. You're doing a great job on social media. I guess you have a lot of time on your hands these days.
I actually don't. We opened our 4th and 5th wrestling academy this spring. And then obviously I'm doing 3 or 4 podcasts and coaching a lot. So I'm coaching like 11 practices a week right now. So yeah, I'm pretty busy, but obviously, social media doesn't take that much time. You have a thought, you freaking click it on there, boom, type it in 10 seconds and you're done.
You're very good at it, and it's amazing. Exactly 1 year ago today was one of the most memorable interviews in the history of my show. Do you remember this
Oh,
interview?
that was okay. So July 8th was when I come on. Yeah. I didn't think about that, but yes, I do recall, of course.
And you made that joke on Twitter, but I feel like there was some truth behind it. Like, oh gosh, now for the rest of the week, not only it's the anniversary, but Masvidal steps up and he's in the news. Does it really bother you to have to see that all the time, over and over again, the flying knee knockout?
I mostly scroll through it. There's very, very few times where I actually sit there and watch it. I mean, maybe 5 times over the course of the last year compared to say the million or so that it's posted. So I very rarely scroll through, but just having that on my timeline and then having to, obviously the UFC and other MMA content people that I follow are posting all about them this week. And just like, I don't hold grudges towards that, but it's like, I would prefer not to see it if I can.
Is it possible that you and Masvidal are like buddies now? I feel like you're actually
I don't think so.
friend. No? I feel like there's a
Um,
mutual respect now. I feel like there's no bad blood whatsoever. He kind of enjoys you, you enjoy him. I feel like deep down maybe you're rooting for him because the better he does, the better it makes you look. Because if he turned out to
yeah,
be a dud, right, then
yeah.
the knockout would look worse. I don't know. I feel like you
Well, I
guys
don't
are
know.
buddies now.
I think I said this before. I don't think him, however much success he has or does not have, I don't think it has any impact. It was one move. It wasn't like, he beat me 50 moves to 0. It was one move and that was it. I didn't ever hate him. I was kind of like in the middle of him. Like there's some things that he does, I'm like, As some things I do, he does, I'm like, I guess that's thumbs up. Obviously leading up to the fight, I told you that was the fight I wanted. I knew that was my path to a title shot. I win that fight, I get the title. And so if you remember, I beat Robbie Lawler. I had already booked my flight to Till versus Masvidal. I knew one of those guys would be, top 5, right? So Till would have won. He would have stayed at number 2. Masvidal won. So I think he moved to what was either 3 or 4. So I kind of had that foresight to know that was the case. And then I had to convince George to fight me because if you recall, he got in a fight backstage with Leon and he was kind of hesitant because of our training sessions to accept the fight, which, he's trying to rewrite the history on that. But you can go through my Instagram timeline if you want to and see the dates. There was the one where I had to call him a naughty word. And I think that was the one that set him off because he referenced that one video several times in the future. So I knew that was the one that really got to him. And finally, obviously he accepted and, I thought that was perfect for me. Obviously it turned out not to be perfect, but that was where I wanted to be.
No one wants this distinction, but I have a hot take for you. Is it
Uh-oh.
possible? Is it possible that that loss actually made you more popular? Is it possible that the way in which you handled that loss a year
Yeah.
later has actually turned you into the ultimate babyface?
I think okay, I think that happened a little bit, right? But then you look at the other side of the coin. If I win that fight, I'm fighting Usman for a world title.
Mm.
We're talking about I could have been probably the most popular to definitely top 3. If I win the Masvidal fight, I'm definitely top 3 most popular fighter in the UFC. There's just no doubt about that. I was probably at that time, I was probably definitely a top 10, but I think you could probably even argue a top 5 when you look at the metrics on social media. If I win that fight, I'm a top 3 for sure. And then obviously if I was able to beat Usman, I would have been, top 1 or 2, right? It would have been Conor and me. So in some essences, yes, obviously it has made me more likable and that sort of thing. But at the same time, if I would have won that fight, I think I would have reached fairly high levels of stardom.
Do you miss active competition? Do you miss being in training camp? Do you miss the feeling of having a big fight? Do you miss any of that?
There's aspects of it. I mean, like literally, I don't train. I don't really train anymore. I can't. My hip is so bad. I don't really do anything. I mean, I have a hard time showing some moves at the wrestling academy. I'm getting my hip fixed September 1. I kind of thought. Obviously, I didn't know Corona was going to hit. Who knew that?
Right.
So it was going to be after the camp season for me for wrestling camps. We had obviously wrestling season, spring season, and then we do camps in the summer. I was going to do it after that because fall is relatively slow for us. So I'm getting it done in September. Yeah, obviously there's things about it I miss. I mean, I was a high level competitor for say a good 20, I don't know, 20 years of my life, maybe somewhere in there. I mean, if you were talking really high level, maybe 16, 17. And I would say I lean towards I'm enjoying my downtime and retirement more than I miss it, right? I guess if I missed it that much, I'd probably have some desire to go back. I don't really have any desire to go back. I mean, I feel like I pushed myself really hard for like again, close to a 20-year chunk of my life. I remember when I was a freshman in high school at age 14, I decided I wanted to quit football because I wanted to focus full time on wrestling. And that was when I started wrestling year round and competing at national tournaments on a very regular basis. Then I didn't retire till I was 35. So, it's really kind of a 21-year, that's kind of a marathon.
By the way, when you get the hip replacement, what kind of recovery is that? Like, how long before you can move around and just live
Yeah.
a pain-free life?
So I'm doing the Birmingham hip, which is I guess it's not a full replacement, but it is a replacement. Um, so they said I should be off crutches within 2 to 3 weeks. I think something like that. But they said like full go. So they think I can do full go, which I was really happy about because with the full hip replacement, there's a lot of things you're not supposed to do. So like I really miss just getting on the mat and wrestling with the kids and some of our better kids, right? I miss being able to hop in and give them a look or wrestle with them or push them a little bit. I really miss that a lot. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to do that again, which so they're saying a full year before I should go really hard. But they said I should be kind of like, I want to say normal within 3 to 4 months, but they really want you to do it right. And obviously if I'm getting a freaking piece put in my body, I don't want to do that wrong.
So obviously, one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you is because you are so connected to Masvidal and Usman. Obviously,
Yes.
you never got the chance to fight Kamaru, but your UFC run was very much tied to both those guys. And I actually
Yes.
want to start with something that you tweeted, I believe, on Saturday morning. Once we found
Uh-oh.
out that Gilbert Burns was out of the fight due to his positive COVID-19 test, and then we got the tweet from Masvidal, we got the tweet from Colby Covington. You wrote Masvidal's being serious. Something to the extent of Masvidal.
I said Masvidal means that Colby doesn't. And
Yeah.
it was obvious to me. I mean, so maybe it's because of my relationship with Tyron Woodley and how many times I know for a fact Tyron's been offered that fight and accepted, I think 6 times against Colby, and Colby has refused to sign the contract. He at this point, he's trending towards the area of keyboard warrior. And I know he actually fights in a cage. I know he's actually good at fighting. But when you say you'll do something and you don't actually mean it, that just takes so much away. And honestly, one of the sticks that Colby kind of had going for him was that he would just show up and fight, right? And that was one of the things he had going for him. And now he's proving that to be false. I mean, he volunteered, you remember at the beginning of the Corona thing, he volunteered to fight Woodley a couple of times and everyone was for it except Colby. He said he would do it and they didn't do it, right? And he's done this a few other times. So we just know he's being a poser at this point. And again, that was a positive thing towards his character. Now it's actually kind of like, well, everyone knows you're a fraud. So it's not a positive thing anymore.
Are you surprised ultimately that, okay, I'm going to ask you about 2 things. I'm wondering if you're surprised about. Number one, are you surprised that Masvidal took the fight on 6 days notice?
Okay. No, so I think I followed this up with a tweet and I said the same thing. So it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a no lose for George, but it's damn near he can't lose it. And so one of the things was he got paid. I don't know how much more he got paid, but obviously that was why they put Gilbert Burns in. They didn't put Gilbert Burns in because that's a more enticing fight. That's not why they put Gilbert in. They put Gilbert Burns in because Dana's a freaking hard ass and he didn't want to pay George what George wanted to get paid. It was that simple, right? So he says, okay, well, we're going to use someone else then. And they did. Now, when that someone else is taken out and they really need a big fight, obviously they went and called Masvidal. And for Masvidal, my take would be it's more important for him to get paid what he's worth than to actually have a real training camp. And, on top of that, I would say Gilbert Burns only got picked, like 4 weeks ago? It couldn't have been that long ago. So prior to that, George was probably really training for the title fight. So if he did take any time off, it was a fairly minimal amount of time, right? He was probably training for the title fight. I think it was going to be July 11th. He probably maybe went to Burns. He took a little bit of time off, but not all that much is what I'm guessing. And so for him, the fact that he got paid what he wants that's probably more important to him. And then obviously if he wins, great. And now he can keep demanding more money. If he loses, he can then turn around and say, listen, dude, I took this fight on 6 days notice. Give me a real title fight with a real training camp. As long as it's relatively competitive, that will fly.
Considering all that Masvidal said in that past month when they gave the fight to Burns, right? He was very vocal about a lot of business related things. Are you surprised that the UFC went to him? Are you surprised they gave him this fight?
No, they had to. And that was what he wanted, right? And before they had another option, that other option was Gilbert Burns. At this point, there was, I guess you could say maybe Leon Edwards was an option, but who knows if he was even training or anything like that. Yeah, so I think he was their only option. I think they needed a big fight, and that's why they went to him.
Okay, so I mean, surely they've thought about the repercussions. I mean, even once he got the fight, right? Like he's on First Take, he's on SportsCenter. I'm talking about Masvidal talking to me, and he's continuing talking about the business and all that. Imagine if he wins. They've got a potential issue. Like he has all the power, right?
That's something. Yeah, that's a risk that they're willing to take. Apparently, I mean, business. There's no cut and dry answers in business. There's always risk reward. What are we risking, and what are we going to get? And I mean, I think I saw. I can't remember the exact number you said, but I agree with you that the number is going to be a lot. You and Daniel talked about how many more pay-per-views it's going to sell. And no one was excited for Burns Usman. We just weren't, right? And that's kind of across the board. Yeah, listen, you can laugh, but you weren't. And now that it's Usman Masvidal, listen, I scrolled through social media a lot.
Right.
I'm not seeing any advertisements of Usman. I'm seeing a lot of advertisements of George Masvidal, annoyingly so. But I'm telling you, it's probably 5-1.
Yeah.
It's probably 5-1. People are excited for George Masvidal. They're not excited for Marty Usman. It's really that simple. And they weren't excited for Usman Burns at all.
Well, Usman's got to be thrilled, right? I mean, George is doing so much promotion for this. Everyone's talking regardless of if you think it's 100,000 more, 200,000 more, he's the champ. He's getting points.
How much more did you say you thought it was?
I said 500,000.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge number.
There's nothing going on, and everyone loves Masvidal, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Let me see. I would say 500,000 seems like a lot to me because it was a 3 title fight card. So I would have guessed, let's say 400,000 or something prior with the 3 title fights, and then there's a couple other decent fights on there. And now I would say maybe 700 to 800. So I'll say 300 to 400,000, which I believe that was where Daniel was at. Yeah, I think those are both they're both reasonable guesses on what the truth is going to be. Yeah, I would have to assume Usman's going to be pumped, and I don't know. Well, it also depends on how did Usman and Gilbert Burns go when they trained together? Did Usman get the better of him? Did he not? I mean, if Usman knows I'm going to beat Gilbert Burns pretty easy, then I think maybe there's an aspect where he's like, well, I don't really like this. But if Gilbert Burns is giving him hell in the practice room and he thinks Masvidal is going to be an easier fight, maybe that's great for him.
Isn't this better for Usman though? You go from the awkward situation of fighting a teammate or an ex-teammate or to a guy that you despise. Way better to fight a guy you despise. No.
Well, again, how did it go in the practice room? If he was mopping up Gilbert Burns, then yeah, that's probably how he feels. But if Gilbert Burns was giving me a hard time, he knows this is probably 50-50. There's a decent chance I'm gonna lose my belt. Then yeah, I think he's pumped about it. But if it's I'm mopping this dude up, he's a bum, then yeah, I think he would be thrilled for the change.
Knowing Usman like you do you think it annoys him that he's the champ and Masvidal's getting all the attention?
Yes, it irks him so bad. I guarantee it.
Why?
You'd have to ask him for some deep-seated reason why, and there's just some people that feel like they never get the credit and recognition they deserve. And, in MMA, well, we've talked about this area. You have to look at your personality and you have to see, okay, what about my personality is perturbing people or making people not. And so if it goes far enough to perturb them where they really hate you and they want to see you beat up, say Conor would be a great example of this. That's the great thing, right? But if we're on the spectrum of they love you and they hate you, you don't want to be in the middle, right? And that's kind of Usman probably is just like to the middle where they don't really like him, but they also don't really care that much. And that's a really bad spot to be in. And yes, I guarantee that despite the fact that he's going to get paid a significant amount more, he is probably very, very annoyed and will carry that chip on his shoulder.
He's obviously not on Usman's level, but fair to say Masvidal is an underrated wrestler. I actually really think I don't think he gets enough credit for his wrestling.
When was a fight where he's wrestled a whole bunch?
Well, but okay,
been
he
a
hasn't.
while.
That's not his bread and butter. But okay, I guess why I'm bringing this up is I see a lot of people saying Usman's going to ragdoll him, just like completely dominate him. I don't
Yeah.
think that happens. Do you?
I think there's a possibility of it. Yeah, I think there's a reasonable possibility of it. Obviously Maya took him down a handful of times and controlled him. So I would say, Maya's probably got worse takedowns than Usman does. But obviously Maya's.
But wasn't that a different Masvidal though? Like he's changed dramatically since then.
I don't know. I mean, right. So Till didn't wrestle at all.
Right,
That didn't happen. Me obviously didn't get a chance to wrestle him. And then obviously Diaz was no wrestling, right? So we haven't necessarily seen. I know obviously he's put time into his wrestling and he values that. And he knows that's an important skill. So what I was gonna say, kind of there's Maya has great control, right? His control is outstanding. Whereas maybe Usman's isn't. So I think maybe the bet is that he thinks maybe he gets taken down, but he can get up. And for a wrestler, that there's nothing more annoying when you go through the effort of putting something down and then they get back up. That's so annoying. You're like, oh damn, put this dude down. I got to take him down again. And obviously if you have a lot of effort into the takedown, it can be exhausting as well.
So 3-1 dog right now. Do you think that that's a fair line, or are you surprised that it's that close, that big?
Yeah, I mean, under those odds, I would kind of lean Masvidal. I think I'm the odds maker. I'm going to make the odds a little bit closer. I think 3-1 is fairly significant. I think he's kind of overplaying his non-training camp. Like I said, I think he was probably training, thinking he was going to get the fight, and then they went with Burns instead. So I would guess he's at least in decent shape, if not good shape.
So do you feel like he has to win the fight in the first 2 rounds? If it goes the distance, this is an Usman fight?
No, I don't.
Why?
If he so okay, here's the thing with and I think some people underrate this. They think as wrestling people is hard, right? So you're generally going to get tired. Throwing punches is actually not that physically taxing. I wish I could remember a fight like this just to point it out. But sometimes wrestlers get tired, and when wrestlers get tired and strikers still have a little bit of gas left, maybe like McGregor Mendez, where Mendez worked pretty hard to keep him down, and then you could tell when they got up in the second. And obviously that was short notice, so maybe you'd make that as an excuse. But wrestling people can get exhausting, especially wrestling for 15, 20 minutes. And then the fighter, the good striker really only has to land a few really hard punches to put someone down. And so if you can make the wrestler get tired through wrestling and getting up and stuffing takedowns, and then you can get them to a point where they're pretty tired from trying to wrestle you, and you can land good strikes, that can be very beneficial to the striker.
Why? Like I saw I think it was yesterday. You tweeted Marty sucks just out of nowhere. Like what prompts you to do that?
It's right. Social media doesn't take a lot of time. It's like, I think the thought came to my head. Or maybe I saw it was it was that old clip of this is what I saw. I know. Now I thought about it. I saw somehow on social media the old clip where they got in the fight at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I was like, this dude sucks. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe other people would laugh at that thought. And so I just went on Twitter. I said, Marty sucks. That's,
you didn't think it was endearing when he kept repeating, do something.
Oh, it was so annoying. It was the same thing when I said, am I sitting next to Marty? And I knew that would irritate him so bad. And he rolled up on me. It's like, okay, dude, I know you're tough. You're a fighter. Like we fight in cages. This is what we do. Like, why do you got to act like a poser and act so tough here in the hallway? Because I know you're not going to do anything. I'm sitting here with flip-flops on, leaning my ass against the wall because you ain't going to punch me. You're not. Okay. You're not going to risk losing a title fight or losing an opportunity or getting fined because you punch me backstage because you're that upset. Like, you're just not going to do it. So stop faking it. You're faking it. Like, stop.
Have you ever had a private conversation where you guys tried to clear the air, spoke about your differences, even after your retirement?
Why?
I don't know.
I'm going to have no interaction with him on a personal level. So I don't see that. If I had to work with him or something, I would try to clear the air, but I don't have to work with him in any way, shape, or form. And so, no, I have no interest in that.
DC told me back in the day, he remembers him at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado. Did you have interactions with it? Like,
Yes, that's why.
I know the whole Marty thing, but like, were you cool?
That's what this is the whole contention I have, Ariel. He was just a normal, cool dude. Like, at the Olympic Training Center, we all stay in the dorms. We all hang out. You pass each other. I mean, you go to the same practice every day. You eat in the same dining hall. There's only 2 lobbies in the dorms. Like, everyone is very interactive, right? And so there's no time. You can't act like a poser and act all hard there because people would eat you up. I mean, they would just make fun of you. They would tease you. And so, then he goes to MMA and he all of a sudden has this persona that he's the hardest dude ever and he's so cool. And it's like, it's fake. And here's why, Ariel, everyone sees that it's fake. That's why he can't get fans, because we know it's fraudulent. It's not real. And that's why I was so annoyed. And that's why I says, like, that's not the dude that you were. Like, you came to MMA and you thought you had to beat this other person, but people are seeing through it. It's like when John Jones tried acting like a goody two shoes. Like, when people really started liking John Jones? When he stopped acting like a goody two shoes, because we thought, damn, we're getting the real John Jones now. Well, you know what? The real John Jones, he isn't perfect. He's not a goody two shoes. You know what? We love that. We love the real John Jones. He's just a real dude. He makes mistakes. He says some mean things. He's a little bit arrogant. Well, you know what? He was the youngest UFC champion ever. He probably should be a little bit arrogant. We like that. So when we saw the real John Jones, we said we embraced it. We said we love that. Sometimes people can't even explain to you. And obviously most fans don't have this personal interaction that I do with Usman, where I know that he's really not acting real. But they can feel it, right? Just like they could feel it with John Jones. And so, those are the 2 that come to my head. It's like people, it was like, I love DC, DC is my boy. I was so annoyed when John Jones started acting like an asshole to DC and people were booing DC. It's like, DC, son, how are you going to boo DC? He's like the nicest guy ever. And John Jones is an asshole. But they loved it. They loved John Jones being real. And people don't like fraudulence. They love it when people are authentic. And so they were booing DC because they loved it. Not because they hated DC, but because they loved John Jones. And it was fantastic. It was entertaining to watch.
Do you feel like that's why people love Masvidal so much? I mean, obviously the fights last year were great, but like showing up in the robe and the beard and the hair and all that, why do you think there's such I mean, this guy's been you don't see in sports, period, not just MMA. You don't see a guy come into his own as a personality 17 years into his career. Like usually, it's a build.
I put the spotlight on him, right?
It's all you.
I mean, but it is, right? I mean, if his Twitter followers, Instagram followers, it went 5x here. I put the spotlight on him. I played the foil to him. I let him shine. And unfortunately, right? I thought I was going to crush him, but he says some of these things like the 3-piece and a soda that are like, maybe he's not intentionally funny, but again, it's really authentic. And people love that. When he said effing super necessary, which I feel like he was kind of a douche for punching me when I was already unconscious. That was just unnecessary. But he said it was super necessary. Like, you know what? It's pretty funny. I mean, I was the dude that got punched. And you know what I'll say? Listen, that was George being real. And that was kind of funny. Even though it was me. And I thought he was a douchebag for punching me after I was unconscious. It was kind of funny. So yes, there is a certain authenticity to George that people really, really enjoy that. And listen, think about the people who are really popular. They're very authentic. And when they start getting fake, they start their demise. I mean, I think Rhonda was really authentic in the beginning, and I thought she started having this prima donna thing to her, and people freaking hated it.
That interaction that the ESPN MMA Instagram account highlighted between you and a fan of the 5 seconds and all that. Do you get that a lot, like, especially now? Do you get a lot of trolls who try to make fun of you about this?
I smash them.
What does that mean?
I put them all in their place. Listen, I ignore a bunch. So here's what I do. Listen, I grab my phone. Hey, remember the time I grabbed my phone and I told you I thought something about Dylan Dennis? And then I had actually muted him because he's such a dip. Too funny. Okay, so here's what I do, Ariel. I'll go right now. So I go to my mentions. I check my verified to see if there's anyone important that said anything. Right? And then I go to all mentions and I scroll, right? And I scroll, and every once in a while I'll stop on something, and there'll be some dip saying something, and then I'll hammer smash him. It's like, dude, how long did it take you to realize you should have went for the double leg against Masvidal? We're like, you shouldn't have done that. It's like, oh, okay. Does it take an effing genius to figure that one out? Come on.
So give us the funky breakdown. How does the fight actually play out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in it because there is part of me that actually says Usman is able to take him down and control him for a long period of time. But hey, you know what? I talked about where a wrestler gets tired. You know what the perfect example of that is? Why I didn't think of this earlier? Maya Masvidal. Maya got tired in the third round, and Masvidal very clearly won the third round. That is a great example. Maya was able to take him down the first 2 rounds, but was, I don't want to say exhausted, but was worn down from taking him down and had a very tough third round. And he clearly lost that third round. So, there's part of me that says maybe Usman can take him down for 5 rounds, hold him down. And there's part of me that says George either stuffs some of the takedowns or gets him tired from trying to take him down, and then in the latter rounds is not able to do so. And I think if it's just a striking battle, I think it's pretty obvious that George wins that one. So I would probably lean towards Usman for sure. But
after all that, I thought you were going with your boy.
But I think there's distinct possibilities where Masvidal can win.
Okay, so the official pick is.
Oh, I hate saying it. Like, it pains me to say it, but yes, I think Usman's going to win, and that's so annoying.
Decision?
I would say, yeah. I have a hard time seeing Usman finishing Masvidal. I think that's relatively unlikely.
Do you go back to Burns after that, or do you take him in a different direction?
You got you got to go back to Burns. I mean, well, again. So if this
what
fight
about
is
Leon Edwards, poor guy.
People forgot about him. Yeah. If this fight is competitive, and Masvidal loses, Masvidal will get a rematch.
Interesting. With a full camp. Interesting.
With a full camp. Yes. They'll run that angle because it's going to do good numbers. You and I both agree. It's going to do good numbers. UFC wants to do good numbers again. Gilbert Burns will not do good numbers. And if it's very uncompetitive and boring, like Masvidal's not able to stuff any takedowns or not able to get up, they're obviously not going to give him the rematch. But if it's competitive, right? If it's 48-47, if it's really competitive, if there's really bright moments for George, they're going to give him a rematch.
If Masvidal wins, you do Diaz 2 for the belt?
I mean, I don't. I think that's dumb, but I think there's a really distinct possibility the UFC does that. The other thing that the other thing is McGregor's going to move up and fight him, and that will be a gigantic fight. So because McGregor obviously wants that third title, Usman would be a terrible matchup for McGregor in my opinion, and so that's why that fight was not made. But McGregor, it'll be McGregor Masvidal if Masvidal wins.
Okay, so the official pick is Usman. Just curious before I let you go, Volkanovski, Holloway. Just give me a name. You don't have to go a whole breakdown.
I would say Volkanovski. I think he won fairly clearly last time. I don't know that Max is going to make enough improvements this time to make a difference.
Jan Aldo?
I think Jan. He's been really impressive. Obviously, there's part of me that says Jose Aldo could still win, and both of them are really fast, and both of them hit really hard. So that kind of always leads me to say both guys have a really good opportunity.
Namajunas Andrade.
Rose. We'll go Rose, but that's a tough one.
And does Paige Van Zandt cash it in her last fight? This is a fight I know you're no.
Rebus is a savage. Did you see her against Mackenzie Dern? She's kind of a badass.
So you think she goes into free agency off a loss, loses all her leverage?
Yeah.
By the way, that was cool of you to give the fighters some advice on taxes after the Mike Perry stuff.
Yeah,
you and Eddie Alvarez, I think, did a really good thing for the fighters.
Well, then I actually did a podcast with the guy who owns a CPA firm.
Okay,
it's up for free on Rockfin. Anyone can watch it. And we talked about some of the misconceptions on write-offs, on LLCs, on all those things, kind of just giving fighters a perspective on what they should do. Because yes, these fighters are clueless. The UFC does nothing to help. Most managers do nothing to help. So you kind of are left on your own to educate yourself. And that obviously doesn't turn out well for everybody.
Last thing, why do you change your name on Twitter almost every day? Like now it's Troll Smash, I think. Like why go through the trouble of that every single day?
You know what? I got bored during quarantine because there was, I don't know what, three months where we had no AWA going on, and there was probably 2 months where I stayed home for 3 weeks, did not leave my house. But there was probably a 2 month period where I was leaving relatively infrequently.
3 weeks? I'm going on 4 months without leaving my house.
Well, you live in New York City.
So
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Wisconsin,
Okay.
dude, Ariel, Wisconsin people don't give a damn right now. Listen, my wife and I went to a social gathering at my buddy's house last week.
No.
It was 5 families, all families we're pretty close with. But dude, we're going back. Ariel, there is a country western concert going on, and we're like, Ariel, there's 2,500 people there, and it's a bunch of old people. And we're like, dude, what is going on? People they literally don't care, but the cases aren't going up, and so I guess they're not seeing the effects of it or something. Listen, people in Wisconsin, they don't really care. People are out everywhere. The lake was packed on the 4th of July. The beaches are packed every day if I go out. Yeah, it's wild here. But yeah, so anyways, I got bored during quarantine. I started changing it. Entertain people. It's now, I don't do it every day, but I try to do it, a couple times a week. I'll just whatever's on my mind.
Well, you are a very busy man. You got a lot going on. Crazy what has happened over the past year. Good to catch up with you on the anniversary of one of our more famous interviews in the history of the show. I appreciate you doing this. Ben Askren, enjoy the fights on Saturday. I'm assuming you'll be watching. Yes,
I'll be. I'm having some people over. You're not invited though. But
I don't want to be invited. Are you kidding me? I want.
Dude, Ariel, stop. You're not that scared. You're not that scared of it. Don't lie.
Pretty scared. I don't
know
if you know this. I'm a very weak human being. I don't know if you know, but I'm very scared. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, I appreciate it. See ya.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.